They released the greatest superhero movie ever and flopped ever since. The average gross of an MCU movie was about 900 million, but that was only until Avengers Endgame was released. The quality has been declining ever since. Except for a few good movies, such as Spider-Man No Way Home and Black Widow, Marvel has faced one failure after another, with their movies now averaging barely 500 million. This wasn't by accident though. Endgame left us emotional, and we wanted to see our favorite superheroes, the original 6 Avengers, on the screen again. But unfortunately, many of the actors didn't feel the same way. Chris Evans left the MCU because he wanted to move on with his acting career and didn't want to be tied down to one specific character for the rest of his life. Which also worked for Marvel, as they wanted to pass the torch to someone else. The same happened with Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. Unlike Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, Thor's story didn't have a clear ending in the same way. After Endgame, Thor leaves with the Guardians of the Galaxy, suggesting that he's not retiring from heroism, but entering a new chapter of self-discovery. Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, then filmed one more movie, which turned out to be pretty exciting, but then left the MCU as well. We were then left only with Hulk and Hawkeye, but it was okay because Marvel didn't need the old Avengers anymore. Marvel wanted to put new characters in the lead roles, such as Black Panther, Captain Marvel, and Spider-Man. Chadwick Boseman revealed in an interview that on the set of Endgame, he, Brie Larson, and Tom Holland were sitting around talking about how they were the future of the MCU and how excited they were about it, and it made sense for them to be the lead roles. Black Panther became an icon. He was the king of the richest country in the world, and to be honest, he was pretty cool. Spider-Man is the most popular superhero on Earth, and Captain Marvel is one of the most important female roles in the comic books. Her movie also surpassed 1 billion at the box office. However, something happened. Spider-Man belongs to Sony, not Marvel. This is because in the 1990s, Marvel faced financial struggles, and Sony decided to help out by purchasing the rights to Spider-Man. And in 2019, Marvel and Sony had a disagreement over the use of Spider-Man. Given the success of the new Spider-Man movies, Sony wanted to bring the character into their universe, one that includes characters connected to Spider-Man, such as Venom, Morbius, and Kraven the Hunter. As if that wasn't enough, after the release of Avengers Endgame, Marvel realized that fans didn't accept Carol Danvers at all, let alone as a replacement for Thor. And to make matters even worse, in 2020, Chadwick Boseman tragically passed away due to colon cancer, leaving millions of fans heartbroken and Marvel with no one to play T'Challa. It was, and still is, too soon to pass the role to someone else. But Marvel didn't give up and thought it wasn't that bad because seeing the success of Avengers Endgame, which grossed almost 3 billion, Marvel acted like we all would. They assumed they could loosen up a bit now. They thought we'd love every movie they will be releasing, even if the quality became questionable or if they introduced new characters we didn't know that well. Since they couldn't make the movies they had planned before due to changes in their schedule, they had to think of other projects. They came up with Shang-Chi, The Eternals, Doctor Strange, Thor Love and Thunder, and Ant-Man Quantumania, leading Phase 4 of Marvel to be a total disappointment. Luckily, a few movies like the new Spider-Man, Black Widow, and Guardians of the Galaxy somewhat saved it. Leaving out a few exceptions, these movies didn't leave us excited, just like the TV shows. They certainly found an audience, but they didn't leave no one speechless the way Endgame did. The Marvel executive admitted he thought Ant-Man Quantumania would be a huge success, so he was very surprised when it flopped at the box office. I don't think it's a bad movie, but there was no way it was going to be something phenomenal. If they thought Ant-Man would be a huge success, they underestimated us. They thought they could just make any movie they wanted and that we'd love every single one of them. If anything, Endgame made us more demanding, not less. All of this was only made worse by the fact that Marvel relaxed its organizational strategy. Let's take a quick history lesson to explain what I mean. Marvel wasn't actually the first to create superheroes. It was DC, with the first DC comic book released in 1934. 5 years later, in 1939, Marvel started publishing its own comics with superheroes. DC was still the leader though, as they already had Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Flash. However, in the 1960s, Marvel took over and has been leading ever since. Even after both companies started making movies, Marvel still had an edge over DC. Do you know why? In 1962, the first Spider-Man comic book was released. Unlike DC characters who were portrayed as perfect and invincible, Marvel had Spider-Man, an average teenager who was just bitten by a spider. He had his own personal life, his problems, and definitely wasn't invincible. This gave Marvel an advantage over DC, as Spider-Man was a highly relatable character. Marvel has always been about creating human-like superheroes with whom fans can relate. When they started making movies, they took it easy, introducing taking one character and their story at a time, not rushing anything. Only then, when the fans were ready, they could afford to make a film with all 6 characters, the Avengers. DC, on the other hand, started a bit later with Man of Steel, but then quickly tried to catch up and continued with Batman v Superman, skipping a solo Batman movie with Ben Affleck. After that, they hurried into making Justice League and Suicide Squad. They really rushed the beginning, leaving fans confused and oversaturated with character storylines. This is why Marvel always had an edge over DC: organization. But what happened after Endgame? Marvel doubled, even tripled their movie production, from 4 movies in 4 years to 10 movies in 4 years. And that's not even counting their TV shows: Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Loki, What If, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Secret Invasion. How are we supposed to keep up with all of this without getting lost? Marvel suddenly became all over the place. They simply started organizing things much worse than before. And if that's not enough, all of this had to be produced during the pandemic, with lockdowns, restrictions, etc. The first Marvel movie filmed from start to finish after the pandemic was Deadpool and Wolverine, which was actually good, but not a turning point for Marvel. Marvel has faced many setbacks, and we're all left wondering what they have in store for us in the coming years. Do you think their movies will get better now, or will they get even worse?